So I'm gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order. Good morning and welcome to our monthly meeting. Before you have the minutes and the agenda for today. I'm going to walk through the agenda very briefly. Call to order, 9 o'clock. We're going to approve the minutes, 9:05. We're going to talk about the new BHA, the staff changes, and the launch of the BHAAC. So that is going to be an informative and exciting part of the agenda. I'm sure we all look forward to hearing about that. The bylaws, federal requirements, representation opportunities. What does that look like? What does that mean? We'll take our break. Then we'll go into talking to our good friend Lloyd about recruitment. We'll talk about the co-chair discussion and chairing. Technically, so everybody knows, and I don't know if Ryan and everyone knows, but today is supposed to be my last day. So, and then we'll go into what's going on in prevention, treatment, and recovery, so we can hear everything that's going on in those disciplines, and we'll get ready to adjourn. But at this time, if we could go ahead and start introductions, that would be great. So I'm going to start with Marcella.
Good morning, everybody. Marcella Pies with IDEA. And I'm really concerned because the summer's just slipping away. So right now, that's what I'm thinking about. And I too wanted a drink of that tea. It really looked like you were enjoying that. So let's have a good meeting.
All right. And I guess we can run down the list. It's probably easiest.
Want me to do that, Bob?
Yes, please, and thank you.
No problem. Let's go ahead and let's start with Natalie. And actually, she's traveling, but she is from Summit Stone Health Partners in Larimer County. She sent me an IM on that. After Natalie, let's go to James Gannon.
Good to see everybody again. James Gannon, person in active and sustained recovery and the director of programs with Advocates for Recovery Colorado. Good to be back.
Good to see you, James. Margie?
It never fails, but my phone rings as soon as I unmute, so I apologize because I can't stop it. Margie Grimsley with the Colorado Federation of Families for Children's Mental Health and on the membership committee.
Thank you, Margie. Yumiko, let's introduce you.
Good morning, everyone. Yumiko Doherty with the BHA. And Donda, I think Jamie and I have a whole space on the agenda to talk more about who we are and how we'll interact with the committee moving forward. So I'll save more for later.
Well, and while we're at it, let's go ahead and have Jamie introduce herself.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jamie Schaff. I'm the Deputy Commissioner for Equity and System Effectiveness for the Behavioral Health Administration. I just started in June, so I'm relatively new, and it's really great to meet you all. Really looking forward to collaborating.
Thank you. And Lorraine, I believe you're on there on the phone or on the computer. Lorraine, are you able to hear us? Let's go with Stephanie Johnson.
Hello, everyone. I'm Stephanie. I'm with Well Power. I'm our Director of Community Relations and Public Policy there.
Thank you, Stephanie. And Glory?
Hi, good morning. Gloria McDaniel. I am the current president of the Colorado Association of Addiction Professionals, and I have a nonprofit called Crisalida, working with victims of domestic violence.
Thank you. Jacob Fry.
Good morning, everybody. Jacob Fry, Director of Operations with Sobriety House. Good to see everybody.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and go with Shannon Miller.
Hi, this is Shannon Miller, Director of Non-Clinical Recovery Support Services with Crossroads Turning Point in the South. And I am also traveling, so we'll see how my self-service goes.
Thanks, Shannon. Lloyd.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lloyd Moore. I'm a person in long-term recovery. I am your membership chair, and I am on the recovery committee and steering committee.
Thank you. Melissa Mouton.
Hey, Melissa Mouton. I'm the executive director at 5280 High School and a person in long-term recovery.
Okay, Ryan Templeton.
Ryan Templeton, Policy and External Affairs Division Director with the Behavioral Health Administration. Yeah, welcome back, everyone, after a very, very quick summer. And yeah, with my wife being a teacher and my 5-year-old going to kindergarten now, it's a fun time where I can finally be like, hey, start work again, folks. So yeah, it's exciting in our house, at least for me.
Awesome. Angie.
Hi, I'm Angie Wold. I'm the Director of Operations for Addiction Research and Treatment Services, better known as ARTS. And I'm on the treatment committee.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and Bonnie.
Yes, good morning. My name is Bonnie Holiday, and my team and I were formerly with the Office of Behavioral Health. I was on the prevention team, and with the creation of the BHA, we went over to the Prevention Services Division at CDPHE. So for the purposes of this group, I provide technical assistance to all things prevention, and I love making connections. And also, Ryan, I'm going to call you out. What's your new title? And tell us that good news.
Yeah, so I guess from June, yeah, I started as Policy and External Affairs Division Director with the Behavioral Health Administration. The Liz Owens role previously, so overseeing the communications team as well as the policy team. We're still in the process of hiring a whole new policy team, so we're kind of across the divisions within the Behavioral Health Administration. We're kind of at that spot, but hey, I'm excited to take on this challenge of implementing this new behavioral health system in Colorado, and look forward to groups exactly like this and providing that collaboration and expertise that each one of you provide to ensure that, hey, the system is effective and trustworthy.
Thanks, Ryan. And we actually have 2 new visitors today. Let's go ahead and bring Darby online.
Thank you. So I got to attend our last meeting. So this is actually my second, but so my name is Darby Renley. I am the Supported Employment Coordinator and Trainer with the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. My job kind of combined when Rachel Horde moved on to become a supervisor in one of our local offices. I was primarily focusing on working with our counselors that held an IDD caseload, but now they've kind of morphed my position into doing all of supported employment. So working with our counselors that do work with the population with IDD, mental health, doing a lot of subject matter expert work with benefits counseling and that kind of stuff. So yeah, so I'm kind of that supported employment go-to person at DVR.
Awesome. And Annette.
This is my first meeting, so thanks for having me. I am Annette Zachariah, Executive Director of Family Housing Network in Larimer County, and I'm also the mother of 2 adult children with SMI and who are both in recovery.
Thank you, Annette. And then let's go ahead and do Lori Banks. You're still on mute, Lori.
I tell you, it's hard when you jump between Zoom and Teams and Zoom. You can't find the mute button. So good morning, all. I'm Lori Banks, and I am the Chief Administrative Officer at Aurora Mental Health Center.
Thank you. And Laura Deck.
Morning, everybody. Laura Dykes. I'm the BHQA Director at Colorado Coalition for the Homeless. And this is approximately my 53rd meeting-ish.
Wow.
I'm guessing.
Is there anybody I missed? All right, back to you.
All right, well, good morning and welcome everyone. I'm Bob Dorsheimer, the chair, and I'm with Mile High Behavioral Healthcare, and I'm on the treatment committee. If we can turn our attention, please, to the minutes. Let's have a review of the minutes. So we'll take about a minute and a half. If anyone has any changes, suggestions, or feedback, I'll be calling on that shortly. So let's take a look at the minutes. All right, fellow task force members, is there any additions, feedback, or suggestions as to last month's minutes?
I move to approve.
Second that.
Thank you and thank you. Minutes are approved. All right, next up on our agenda, we're going to talk about all of the exciting things and changes that we've been hearing about with the BHA, staff, the discussion, the launch of the BHAAC. What does that mean? So what's going on, state of Colorado, fellow employees?
Jamie, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. So hi everyone. One update, you'll notice that we are missing one very key member of our team, Dr. Rene Gonzalez. He had an incredible opportunity to bring youth soccer clinics to the United States. It's a project that he's been working on for quite a while, and the opportunity presented itself to really move this forward. So I think he's perhaps in LA this week, and then had a trip planned to Guadalajara. It's all moving very quickly, and we're so excited that Rene gets to work on a project he's so incredibly passionate about. We were very sad to see him go. So, you know, he's been leading so much work for the Behavioral Health Administration, and we were really grateful for his leadership in launching the Lived Experience Council and supporting this work, and bringing, you know, equity to the forefront of everything that we do here. And we are all very excited to see what he does with the soccer clinics. He's promised to invite everyone to the first game when that happens. And we're just absolutely so thrilled for him. So if you see him, or you see a note from him inviting you to one of the soccer clinics, I think that we'll all look forward to attending and support him in this new adventure that he has.
Great, thank you, Jamie. And again, my name is Yumiko Doherty, and I hope you can hear me okay. My computer, for some reason, does not like Zoom. So just wave at me or put something in the chat if you can't hear me well. But I joined the BHA, I think I'm rounding out my third week here. I came on as the Division Director for Strategy and Engagement. So we will be posting for a new recruiting wide and far for filling Renee's very large shoes. So I also wanted to talk a little bit, and Bob mentioned this, that we will be launching our new BHA Advisory Council. I'm going to put a link in the chat. After an extensive application review, Dr. Medlock has appointed 20 members to the new Behavioral Health Advisory Council, which we lovingly now refer to as BHAC, although I think we need to find a new acronym because it just doesn't sound inspiring. So now there's BPAC and BHAC. So take a look at the link. All the members are listed there, as well as a little bit of information on that council. Their first meeting date is now set for August 18th. 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock. You are all invited to attend. We'll make sure you have that meeting information for those who are interested. And when you look at the list of members, we'll let Bob talk about that in a minute. But I just wanted to take this opportunity to acknowledge, in addition to so much change, standing up a brand new behavioral health administration, I think this particular council has brought about some questions, concerns, confusion, right? Particularly with BPAC, because admittedly, there is quite a bit of overlap in terms of the populations represented on both committees, the focus on lived experts and raising voices of those with lived experience, and even in the duties, right, and the scope of the two councils, there is some overlap. And so I just wanted to take this opportunity to set the record straight that nothing has been decided or predetermined in terms of how these committees will work together moving forward. As you heard, BHAC have committee structure may look like, or what their relationship will be with other committees. So I wanted to be clear about that. I know you may have heard some options, right, that could happen. For example, I think it was floated out there that BPAC would be a subcommittee of BHAC. And again, I just wanted to state for the record that that has not been decided. And so I really wanted to encourage you all to take this opportunity as BHAC launches to really discuss, clarify, and be able to articulate really clearly what you think BPAC's role is, or more importantly, what
Is she cutting in and out?
should it be, right, within this? Am I cutting in and out?
Yeah, you're gonna have to close and restart the computer. That's what happens with Zoom, and then you'll reestablish your link like a rock star.
But this was my rousing speech.
Well, you just gave us an assignment to start thinking about the clarity and the questions we want to ask you. So you gave us about 2 minutes while you reboot to so I can spearhead a conversation. So BPAC, why
don't you do that, Bob? I think you get where I'm going.
All right. So why don't we, really think, and elders and as well as new members, what we really need to galvanize and think about is everything that we have been discussing during the pandemic, which has been really important and taught us a lot. And the fact that, BPAC was responsible for advocating for recovery in Colorado and how to make the recovery field equitable, heard, and put on the map, and to get us treatment professionals that work to support recovery, paying attention to the aftercare and the lifelong work of people living in recovery. And what happened with BPAC is we went through all of those changes together many years ago and had many conversations, and some even were loud because we were afraid of money and the silos and what does this mean for treatment, and there's not enough money to go around, and there's only so much of the block grant, and lo and behold, the family was able to figure it out, and we broke bread, and we have a beautiful new system in Colorado that continues to grow. And I believe in my heart and in my organization, recovery support teams are the backbone of the industry. And we've started using the word that during the pandemic because of the labor shortage, workforce extenders. We haven't really followed up on workforce extenders. We haven't really followed up on expanding the scope of peer supports with inside treatment organizations, as well as their capacity of billing. A lot of that conversation is, some of it's taking place legislatively, but this is all the work that we still have to do with workforce extenders and expanding the industry. But I wanted to give a snapshot of kind of where we've come recently on really big decisions. Prevention has been lean in our conversations. We need to, now that we're coming back out of the pandemic, prevention is key. Certainly Colorado Kids Survey was just released. There's some good news and some interesting news in that survey. So we should review that in the next meeting since the Colorado Kids Survey is out. So now the state has created the BHA. What is it? What is it going to do? We've heard, we've had people very concerned that have reached out to me saying, what's going to happen to the mental health centers? What does this mean? Is it going to be all recovery focused? Do the treatment centers, what changes? So I think everyone was basically saying what's going on, what's going to change, and who is getting uplifted. So I don't have the answers to that, but I did gather, all of this information as people were reaching out to me that I did share with Ryan. So there you have it. So when she reboots and comes back, let's get clarity. And I think it's important to talk about the power of this group because it's very consumer based, which I've always said. And we represent all of Colorado throughout the state. So discussion.
This is
Just put your
Margie
hand up.
Grimsley.
Go ahead,
I'm
Margie.
sorry. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Mark.
I just, I think this is a lot for us to, because I think it's still hearing the piece saying that the decision had not been made where behavioral health, where our group fits. And I think I just am always concerned. And Lloyd, I hope you and Natalie can, I don't know whether you were going to talk about later on about how our meeting with Charlie Smith, because I think that information needs to, rather than wait until we talk about membership, at some point needs to be integrated here just to, because I know so many people at the Behavioral Health Administration are new, that how important it is for them to understand what is unique about our group and how we are attached to the block grant and what are our mandates through that piece. So just to understand that what is unique versus how we can work together versus come under something. That for me is really critically important for us to clarify. And I guess I'll just always add that coming from the world of children's mental health and families, that our world talks about resilience rather than when recovery. There are some really unique pieces that happen within that world. So how we will all be able to work together in meeting the needs of families, youth, consumers, those with mental health challenges, as well as all the other pieces that are part of the makeup of who people are and how they need help. And now I'm taking my hand down. Thank you.
Bonnie had her hand up, and then I do.
Well, I think I definitely wanted to amplify, I think Margie's key questions there. I think those are so important. And Bob, I also heard you talking about Healthy Kids Colorado survey. And so now that I'm at the Prevention Services Division at CDPHE, if this group would like, I can reach out to the folks who are program managers for that survey to see if we might be able to get presenters in for the next meeting, if that's something people are interested in.
Yeah, I would go ahead and add that for our prevention part of what's going on. That's a fantastic survey that would benefit everybody in this commission. So we should add that to the agenda, and thank you.
All right.
You have your
Lloyd.
hand up. I can't hear from today. Go ahead, Lloyd.
Okay, Lloyd Moore here. As Margie stated, is that we had invited Charlie Smith to our last membership committee meeting. And I think for those of us that have been on council for a while, kind of reminded us of a few things and brought some ideas forth that we'll discuss more later in membership. But with our current conversation, I think one of the key things that I knew and was said again during our meeting was that this council is mandated in federal statute. So within that, how this, as you heard, plays out with the, yes, need a better name, BHAC, is, just kind of shake out how it's going to work. One of the things that I was aware of, because going back several of our liaisons from behavioral health, is that this council has been known to be a leader in the BPAC councils throughout the years. And one of the examples he gave us was this was one of the first councils, if not the first council, that pulled in the addiction realm of the SAMHSA piece to this council. So I think keeping that in mind, that this is a federally mandated council, and what our purpose is within SAMHSA, we need to keep that in view. And then he also recommended a person, I'd have to go back and look at my notes, that is I believe he said he was essentially SAMHSA's project manager, if I'm correct. That would be a very good key person to speak with as we go through transition, and also looking at our how we restructure our bylaws.
To add to what Lloyd said, it's Ernest Fields is his name. So he's the one that we'll need to connect with. I don't have anything else to add. Thank you. It was a good meeting. I appreciated hearing from Chuck again. Yeah.
I don't know, Lloyd, just to remind people, maybe everyone doesn't know who Charlie is and his relationship with our group.
Charlie Smith is our representative to SAMHSA. He's the regional administrator for Region 8 that we are in. He's also actually has a history of the employment with the state of Colorado behavioral health realm, and Bob might be able to fill that in a little bit more since he's had prior experience with this council besides current.
Charlie was our previous OBH director. So there has been concern shared about the new creation of BHAC. And we have the time now to kind of vet that out a little bit, or what I could suggest is let's let BHAC get started and start taking a look at BHAC's agenda, and we can take a look at our agenda, and then we can start working collaboratively together where we start seeing the overlaps and to start having those conversations on where best is to have that conversation, which council, which task force, so that way the product, the end product that comes out of both is for a better behavioral health system. So it's important to address the concerns and hear the concerns today, but until that meeting happens and we start seeing the direction, it will also allow this council to address the concerns. So if you have your hand up, go ahead.
Thanks, Bob. This is Yumiko again with the BHA. Hopefully you all can hear me because I'm going to give another rousing speech. I'm just kidding. Just hearing that, and again, I'm not, because I am new, I don't know exactly what
No.
some of the specific concerns are.
Yumiko,
But again,
maybe
just wanted
try
to
turning your
reiterate,
video off.
right? Oh no, can you hear me?
Yes.
I think I'm being too rousing, maybe. And so it's trying to calm me down. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Okay, I'll try to speak calmly. I wanted to essentially to say, you know, in short, to put the ball in your court. This is a brand new committee that hasn't even gotten off the ground yet. So other than what's in statute, right, we are creating what this committee will be. And so I just wanted to say, this is an opportunity for you to come together and put forth recommendations and thoughts in terms of how the committees work together, what space you hold within the system. And so just wanted to kind of give you that power, right, to kind of co-create what that looks like instead of sitting back and waiting. And so I again, it might be helpful to hear some of the specific concerns, but again, just want to reiterate that we are creating, we are in a design phase. So let's design together what we want this to look like. So that's basically what I wanted to say.
Okay, Lloyd here again. And there we go. Let's try that again. I think we heard some bits and pieces of that from Charlie during his visit with us. One of the questions that's come up that I've heard several times is the kind of the operation of this council right now. And one of the things I brought forth in both membership and steering is that we have a purpose here, and that we shouldn't stop the processes that we currently do, or we shouldn't put ourselves on hold. That we should continue doing what we're doing, and throughout all this.
Put your head down, so to speak, and keep on doing the work. Anyone else?
This is Margie. And I might be wrong, but I want to, and Natalie and Lloyd can help, and Donda, but Charlie did say that because we had joined the two worlds together, that doesn't mean that you have to continue having the two block grant recipients join together under one council. So I think the conversation can be larger, but what is critically important is maintaining our responsibility and our role as advising on the block grant to the state. And how do we continue that unique piece? I think also, and this is my agenda, so I don't know whether Charlie said it or not, but I could pretend. But I think, again, what is always so unique about this group is the variety and the diversity that we work so hard to maintain. And I think that is also a piece that where we can bring forth, when we advise, we can advise from a broad perspective of voices and perspectives. So those to me are very important to remember.
Anyone else?
This is Lori. I'm sorry, go ahead. Is it me?
Yeah, it's you. Go ahead, Lori.
Thanks. So this is Lori Banks with the Aurora Mental Health Center. And Charlie and I worked together at the Office of Behavioral Health, that was Mental Health Services, when this council was actually formed. And he is correct. We Colorado blazed the trail in terms of what this council looked like and the guidance that we gave regarding the block grant and the combining of two worlds, mental health and substance use disorder treatment. And there were states that actually came to Colorado to look at this council and have some understanding about how we meld those two communities together, things of that nature. So my perspective is this council can be very powerful in terms of what they recommend and how they move things forward. And so I would support and echo what Charlie said in terms of, I don't believe the council is sitting back, so I don't want to use that word, but I don't want people to perceive that they are and waiting for something to happen, that we need to blaze the trail and continue to provide recommendations and thoughts and help move the system as opposed to the system moving us.
I would like to echo, I support what Lori said and what Lloyd said is we need to continue to move forward. I mean, I think this is such a unique opportunity, and this is my bonus year being on Bhpac, and it has changed my career, my organization, because mental health partners, the creation of recovery, we have prevention, intervention, and treatment all in a room. And when it's a normal seated council, we typically have closer to 40 plus people attending, and they're very robust meetings. So I think this is a very special council, and it certainly means a lot to me, and a lot can come out of this, and has and does. I personally do not feel any type of threat or concern about Bhpac. I guess the way I view Bhpac is this special group of voices is always going to be heard, and I hope that is my legacy, is this group needs to continue to advocate and speak up. Maybe Bhpac is more policy oriented, and this group offers a lot of that technical assistance on how to get to good policy. I don't know, but we've been doing that work, and that work I would say we should not give up, and that voice. So, but I do want to call out my recovery friends today and see if there's any concerns from that community, because your voice is important today.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. This is James. It's not really a concern. It's more of just a question. Maybe this has been talked about, but outside of like advising on the block grant to the new BHACC, like how are we going to get these conversations with them, recommendations? Margie talked about making sure that they know the roles that we're going to play. Like, how is that communication going to happen from Bhpac to the BHACC and also the BHA?
Well, we have an established line of communication where we appoint people to other commissions and advise back. Again, the meeting is next Thursday from 3 to 5. It's brand new. What I might suggest is all of the concerns or suggestions that we have, we should probably get a running list, so that way they're addressed and don't go unaddressed. So that was one of the questions that I had going. I've been appointed to Bhpac, so I will be starting next week. on that. And one of my communications, obviously coming from this council to the new council, was the communication strategy.
Bob, just so you know, I know I'm on both committees. Yumiko's on both committees. So I think Yumiko will be here with BPAC as well. Ryan gets to sit in on everything. So I think a lot of our BHA people will be switching back and forth. And although I try to sit and be quiet, I'm also not quietest of all, especially when things aren't the way I interpret them. So, and I wanted to let you know Shannon has her hand up since she's driving. It's kind of hard for her to jump in.
Shannon.
Going to say, echoing a little bit back to Margie as well, but we continue to advise on additional things other than just the block grant as we go forward. I know that we wanted to make sure that those advisory pieces stayed intact, but I know that especially with the settlement funds that are coming down, that's a lot of what is being talked about in the southern counties. And they're concerned that those are going more to prevention and recovery, which I, of course, am for the recovery piece as well, but some of them making sure that those are equitably portioned out, I guess, between allowing treatment and funding as well.
Somebody calls me from this number. I don't want.
Thank you, Shannon. Marcella?
So I agree with everybody in the opportunity that we have moving forward, what we would like to see, but considering the track record, and we do have an awesome track record, I would like to hear what part of us will you embrace? I know that you already have established some goals, probably even 3 and 5 years out. Where do we fit in for you? How do you need us? I welcome the opportunity to give ideas on how we want to do it, but I would really like to hear from you exactly how you see us as a benefit to what needs to get done in long term, not just short term.
I can take a stab, and then when I inevitably lose connection, hopefully someone can take over for me. So I think what you see, Marcella, and is this bigger vision, right, of a behavioral health administration that's looking across the lifespan, the continuum from prevention through recovery, right, across payers, right, establishing an equitable, comprehensive behavioral health system in the state. And so I think and all of it very much rooted, right, and driven by lived expertise. And so I think from hearing from all of you, the diverse experience that this group brings across the continuum, as well as the rooted and lived expertise within this council, I think you have to play a critical role in terms of envisioning, right, what this effective behavioral health system can look like. So in very general terms, I see you all as really thought partners who are really covering that whole big space that the BHA is trying to step into, and ensuring that we're thinking about all these different points along the continuum as well. So that's what I'll say very, very, very high level, right, is I think it's critical. You are one of our important connection points to people who are on the ground, who are living and interacting with our systems every single day, right? And what that experience is, where the gaps are, where we need to improve, giving us feedback, holding us accountable to creating a better system. And so, again, that's very nebulous, I think, right now. But again, just to reiterate, I do think there is a huge role in helping us, right, live into the vision of what was created for the BHA. And I think there is space to kind of go through, you know, what are the specific things essentially statutorily, right, that the BHA will be delivering in the near future over the next few years, and the role that this council can play in terms of giving us input and feedback on some of those things. But Jamie or Ryan, or I see Andrew Rauch joined us as well, who's the Chief of Staff for the BHA. Don't know if you have anything else to add in terms of specifically how we see the role of this committee within the BHA.
Yep, thanks, Yomiko. I love sitting back and listening to all of this discussion, and it's actually kind of hard for me to sit back and not talk. But one thing I want to make sure that we get at is Laura, your comment about there's also the BHE implementation process going on, which feels like it adds confusion. That is exactly why we need to partner with councils exactly like this, going through really a community-based approach to what our whole regulatory rewrite looks like. What is the behavioral health entity license? What is the standardization of all of those 14 statutorily identified safety net services, and really utilizing all of the expertise in this room to come up with how can we best regulate and transform the whole behavioral health system into a system that is truly behavioral health and not a mental health, and not a mental health over here and substance use over there. Bhpac has already done that. Like Lori Banks said, like, we were the first state to combine mental health and substance use into an actual planning and advisory council. So this group has that history, and it makes sense for us to utilize this group to really best inform what that looks like. And additionally, I think this is an opportunity for us moving forward to ensure that all of those pieces that the Behavioral Health Administration is doing, what does performance standards look like for the system as a whole? What's the best way to actually meet all of the other statutorily or federally required duties of Bhpac, where to monitor, review, and evaluate the system, at least annually? What does that look like, and how can we best provide this group with the information that you need to come up with the best block grant recommendations? And I don't want to downplay what block grant recommendations actually mean. This is the only group that has a specific set aside in the annual block grant application that says, hey, what does membership on Bhpac look like? What does the composition look like? And what are those recommendations that get included every 2 years in the application? What are those recommendations, and how did the Behavioral Health Administration, formerly OBH, respond to those specific recommendations, including them in the plan, right? So I think that is a big key piece, that there's the funding aspect and the recommendations based on funding specifically to this group that is not going away, right? There's no way for us to change federal statute. So, hey, Bhpac is here, and it's here to stay. So, I mean, I just want to completely reiterate that, is that, hey, I think it's continuing to work, continuing to do the stuff that Bhpac has always been doing. And then it's also an opportunity for us to really collaborate with the BHAAC and utilize what the BHAAC can bring with the regional subcommittees that the BHAAC has to incorporate. And how can we make sure that the voice of all of the regions is incorporated into planning across the board? And I think this is an opportunity for this group to, this is an opportunity for us to work together and really collaborate and get to the spot where it's, hey, it's not just a metro area driven system, and how can we best create that system across the board that works for everyone across the state.
So Ryan, I got a text from somebody, and this is, and you and I have talked about this before. And it's a 4-part question for the state from one of our task force members. And I don't know if these can be answered today, so I'm just going to read what was sent to me. What changes are coming for the recovery community? What will change with the safety net community that's currently not working? What will be done with the mental health center's lack of response? What will be done with Fort Logan and the Institute with the lack of beds and resources available for Coloradans? So this was a 4-part question that somebody had today. kind of a big question.
Yep. And yeah, I think that's bringing all those questions back to this group, kind of outside of really the Fort Logan Pueblo piece, because once BHA was created, we separated out community behavioral health and the institutes, and now they're called OVH, right? But Institutes and Forensic Services over there. So they have their own piece going through, and a lot of American Rescue Plan Act funds going to create additional bed and resources at the institutes, which we can get them involved in and what that looks like as well. But really that is the opportunity for us as a state right now with establishing recovery, both mental health and substance use recovery supports is listed as one of those foundational safety net services that the state needs to standardize, and what that looks like. I think that is excitement right there, right? Where this is further enforcing that recovery is a part of the behavioral health continuum. And that flows into what the safety net system really is, and actually defining what a true safety net system is, and allowing further involvement in who are safety net providers. That's exactly what the BHA bill did and contemplates. And now it's us through the BHA and our community partners just like this to what does that implementation look like? It's a quick turnaround. I think part of that is the regulatory rewrite. Our whole rule volume, that 170 pages of 2 CCR 502-1 is getting a complete facelift and a bunch of different stuff happening in there, because we actually have true licensing of behavioral health providers now that CDPHE currently does. Right, so that's that whole process. And then what does the approval of all of the safety net services look like, from outpatient to high intensity outpatient to residential to recovery support services to care coordination and care management and screening, assessment, and diagnosis. All of those things are those core safety net pieces, which this is what I want to bring to this group and say, hey, how can this group help the BHA come up with what these standards actually look like? Because that's the piece that also comes into the community mental health center response, is that, right, community mental health centers, they're currently licensed as a new structure within CDPHE, or the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, under this behavioral health entity license that is active. Every community mental health center as of July 1 of 2023 has a new licensing category as a behavioral health entity. Right, so that is transitioning over to the Behavioral Health Administration, and the Behavioral Health Administration, all of those renewals, those annual renewals for the licensing of those types of facilities, including acute treatment units and crisis stabilization units, that's transferring over to the Behavioral Health Administration for all of those renewals starting July 1 of 2023. So that's where we set that foundation of, it is the Behavioral Health Administration's responsibility for what the system accountability looks like. How do we actually track performance, and even foundational health facility licensing requirements is now going to be part of the Behavioral Health Administration. So I think those are all the pieces that we can work together over these next couple of months, because that's essentially what we have to get this right, or at least to get this first iteration of this right. Because rules need to be drafted and out the door and through clearance and posting by the end of this calendar year. So we only got a couple months to do this as well. So that's the piece where I like the conversation of, we can't just sit back and wait for things to happen, is because we got stuff to do right now.
Marcella?
I'm okay now, thanks.
Bob, if I may.
Yeah.
Just also, I think in response to your questions too, just very generally, I think what the BHA is creating is a different way of governing, right? Where the BHA is not going to be a collection of experts who know the answers to all of those questions and what's best for the people of Colorado. The BHA is first and foremost a convener and a collaborator, right? And how do we work across state agencies? How do we work with community-based organizations, people who know their populations? How do we work with people with lived expertise? to help us understand how to make the system better. And then of course, the BHA needs to be held accountable for implementing those things, right? But in terms of specifically answering, what do these things need to look like, right? For all of Colorado, that is not specifically an answer that I think BHA staff should be able to come up with on their own. And so I know it sounds like a non-answer. What should be happening in the recovery community? And what can the BHA do to move that forward, right? And how can you hold us accountable to that? So I really do see that as a conversation, and again, highlighting the importance of this space and how much we will be leaning into this space.
I think one of the questions that just came up in the chat, and it came up through one of my text systems, is there still an inequity in the system between the mental health organizations and the SUD organizations and the recovery organizations, that there isn't a equitable payment structure in any of those three. So that just came up in the chat. I don't know if we can address this today because we've been trying to address this for years, but that is still an equity kind of question that's out there. So maybe we can propose the way the question is. Well, actually, do you want to state your question that you put in the chat about payment equity? Do you want to further expand on that?
Sure. I was just, for me, I work in recovery, but really what we find going across the board is we could have two different agencies, or even if we put in just straight recovery support, you could have three entities, one who's licensed as recovery support, one who's licensed as SUD primary, and one who's licensed as mental health primary. All three could provide the same service, and all three would be eligible at different reimbursement rates for that same service. And so some of those entities get a lower reimbursement rate for really providing the same service, at least from what I have come across so far my own self. From what we see is based upon, even some of it may be based regionally. A lot of it's based on the RAISE system, I think, which coming from Missouri, a different state, not Colorado, and seeing the behavioral health system looks very different. Pros and cons on each state always. But I think that's a huge difference, is that people are providing the same service yet not receiving equitable reimbursement for those services. Does that make sense, Bob?
Yeah, that's been part of the question from several people that have sent me messages. So yeah, so thanks for bringing that up. So that's a key concern for mental health, substance use, and recovery. And let's not forget our prevention providers.
Absolutely.
Are always kind of at the table, but not always talked about. And I'm a prevention provider, and so prevention also has to be represented. But I think what I'm hearing in today is people really want to see BHAC address the inequity. And I don't know if that's the role of that new entity, but that seems to be what is being said out of BHAC for a number of years.
Bob, if it's okay.
Margie?
Oh, sorry. Just real quickly, I think that one thing I want to throw out that is always important to me is that we don't do harm during this transition time. Oftentimes when there is a lack of clarity, it can lead to confusion and a lack of services and supports being given, because people really don't know what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to do it. So I know if we're here and the BHA wants to get over here, we just have to be very, very, very cautious and careful with what happens in the middle.
And Bonnie, your turn.
Myself. Okay, there we go. Thank you so much, Margie. And Bob, I just want to say appreciate the shout out to prevention as always. And Margie, I think your point about, making sure that the people that, need and deserve and require our services are not harmed by this transition. I know with my transition over to CDPHE, from the start, I've advocated, I was like, you know what, the most important thing for me is that my providers don't experience any disruptions, and I can still pay people just like I normally would. And I also, thinking back to something Marcella said a few minutes ago, asking how this group can be of service to the BHA, and it just prompted me. I see new faces here, but even if you're a new face, I'm hearing your story. I'm hearing stories about people with adult children with SME, and I just want to say, I, as a TA provider that's been coming to this group for 3 years, I consider this group just like a real group of real OGs. And when I think about experts in the state and lived experience and authenticity, I always think about y'all. And so for people that are new to the BHA, I just wanted to, I think this group has been modest in their introductions. And I think the expertise and the breadth of experience here is just an incredible group to tap into. So just wanted to give my 2 cents.
All right, I'm not seeing any other hands, and in the interest of our agenda, I'm going to work towards closing this part of the agenda. If there isn't any other further discussion people want to have, or any final remarks from our state colleagues. All right. Well, so basically, my takeaway is we need to hang tight, put our head down, and do our BPAC work while BHAC gets started, and we'll work on those lines of communication to make sure they're happening. And as always, I trust that BPAC will continue to generate the questions and hold people accountable. And it sounds like a lot of the same state representatives will be working both task force, which is great for continuity. So thank you everyone for the robust conversation, and let's keep it going. So next up.
Bob, this is Margie. Can I just add real quickly that Charlie did offer to speak with Renee. So I'm sure he would also do that. He would make that offer to our new folks coming in from the BHA. So that just might be something to put on your radar screen.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, thank you, Margie. It's now 10:05, and we were going to talk about federal requirements, representation opportunities, and the bylaws, some consulting work, and moving forward.
Yeah, so originally the August meeting was going to be all bylaws, right? Like there was the who wants to be part of a bylaws committee and start drafting bylaws, right? And it turned into the let's have everyone meet. First off, it was in person, but obviously that didn't work out with COVID. But I think this was really the heart and the intent of what the August meeting was supposed to be. Previously, the last couple of years, we'd recess for I think July and August, but I like having this meeting, so pulling it back together for August is fantastic. So with that, we've been having these kind of offhand discussions about what bylaw update should be. Part of this I wanted to make sure that we focus on, which got brought up a few times, is the federal requirements specific to the mental health planning council, right? So as a reminder, it's mental health specific planning council and federal statute. Block grants are broken down into the mental health and substance use side. It's the mental health block grant that has the advisory council requirements. So like Lori brought up, we combined those probably over a decade ago, right? To account for both mental health and substance use disorder services and what block grant is used for and what the Planning and Advisory Council advises on. So with that, I'm going to put the, just for your records, here's a link to the 42 USC 300 X3 is the federal law for the Planning and Advisory Council. It starts on this document's page 5, but I think it's a good place to start with like what are the duties. So it's broken into 2 columns. If you go down to page 5 of that document, it's on the actual document. It says page 1104 on the top right, and those are the duties there. So it goes the general, the funding agreement for the grant talking about the block grant, and that those duties, and there's those 3 duties there, is to review the plan being that plan that every state submits to receive block grant funding. So to reviewing that and submit recommendations to modify the plan. So those are those recommendations that we do every 2 years. The big block grant application is due every 2 years, but there's every year we have a mini block grant application that goes over how are things going and what does composition of the advisory council look like. So it's a continuous process that is really a yearly process, but it's a big one every 2 years. Is that still ringing a bell for everyone? Right. So we kind of go down the path of the 1 year is kind of an off year. I think it was what we've called it, and 1 year is the block grant year. 2 is to serve and advocate for adults with serious mental illness, children with severe emotional disturbance, and other individuals with mental illnesses and emotional problems. So this is, I mean, obviously you can see that foundational language to mental health specific, because this is where it's in federal law, the mental health side of things. And then 3rd is to monitor, review, and evaluate not less than once a year the allocation adequacy of mental health services within the state, right? So this is what we're talking about, that it's not just block grant specific. There's still the advocacy and the monitoring the system, right? Like those are foundational pieces that are in federal law related to what Bhpac does. Right, so kind of back to that foundational piece of, and ultimately those are the 3 duties that are established. And then what does that look like for us creating bylaws and coming up with how do we work within those things to really support the people of Colorado? Hit it, Lloyd.
And within that comes within all that Ryan just said also comes within pieces of what membership needs to look at in trying to create the diversity on the council. It's just not what our current changes that we've seen over the years with identity of individuals, and it also is within these this legislation of areas that we need to make sure we need to address as a piece of membership that we recruit for.
Yep. So I think that kind of really does set the foundation for what the bylaws rewrite was going to be. I mean, I think Lloyd, you bring up that good point about what does representation mean? What does membership mean? Like there's not a whole ton of information within federal law related to what specific requirements there are. There's the state agency and provider requirement, and then that those 2 groups, so down a little bit further under that certain requirements be there, that not less than 50% of the members of council are individuals who are not state employees or providers of mental health services, right? That's where we get to that 50% requirement of individuals with lived experience, family and advocacy organizations that make up this council. But within that, I think we've had the conversation in here over these last couple of months about what does it mean for recovery support professionals that are now working in treatment agencies. What does representation actually look like, and really should it matter, and how do we track that? Because ultimately it comes back to composition of the council and submitting that in the block grant application. Like we have to break it down into this specific individual on the council is representing this group or organization as well, which, right, people are complex. They're more than just a treatment provider or an individual lived experience or a family member, right? So it's how do we best address that in the parameters of like ensuring that our board is diverse and made up of folks that really have that expertise. Because you all have it, right? And so how do we best relay that to our federal partners as well?
So based on what I'm hearing and moving this part of our conversation forward, is our September meeting really needs to start focusing on the requirements and the bylaws and the equity that we talked about and getting those going. What is the consulting part, Ryan, that the state was referring to?
Wait, will you ask that question again?
On the agenda, it says consulting as part of the bylaws. Was that somebody we were going to bring in? Or is that, what was the part about involving consulting?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was more of like having the conversation between what does federal requirements look like? How does that actually inform a bylaw creation?
It's part of our spectrum that Renee taught us. All right. Renee's legacy lives on.
For sure.
All right. I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't a consulting piece that that was being offered when it came to. So I think it's still an interesting question that I would like to raise is when we're going about the bylaws, and I guess I was going to lean on Renee to help this group and us make sure that we stayed equitable, because we're rewriting them and we're taking a look at them. So how do we look at these differently, as we discussed all year, to make sure that they're inclusive and equitable when it comes to the bylaws and how we operate, which then in turn, that's the way we perceive the task force, and then the task force perceives the block grant that way. And then decisions and KPIs get made out of those core values. So how does that continue to stay alive? Since that was really important for all of us, the equity and inclusionary aspect of changing our bylaws. Heavy question, I know, but really that was, Renee was going to take us through that, and because that was Renee's expertise.
Yeah.
So,
and Bob, Jamie Schaff is here, who is our Deputy Commissioner for Equity and has extensive background in that area as well. I'm here to support you all in that as well, and we are hiring for a new Director of Equity. I hope that although we're not Renee, that we can certainly support the committee specifically with that lens.
Yeah, one of the things that we discussed that I want to keep alive as I exit the chair position was that if we were going to start rewriting the bylaws, we wanted to make sure the lens that we were using was through equality, equity, and inclusion. So that way, then those core beliefs start permeating out into the decision-making when we're coming up with the KPIs for the block grants. So I just want to keep that on the agenda, as that was something that was important to the group. So I'm glad to hear that we will still have the technical support in doing that. Fellow council members, do we have any questions as to how we're going to move forth on the bylaws?
I had a question. I raised my hand and then I thought maybe I don't have a question, but I guess I do. So I know that in the housing world, like we have some technical assistance that's available to us from HUD. Is there any sort of technical assistance in this sort of in this sort of reformatting of bylaws and stuff from federal agencies like SAMHSA? Is this being done in other states? Is there requirements that we need to abide by? I just wasn't sure if there was federal technical assistance anywhere for this.
Yeah, excellent question.
Yep, and there is, and we plan to request technical assistance specific to the Bhpac or the advisory council. It's part of the annual application, block grant application process, requesting technical assistance. So the plan is for us to request technical assistance specific to having the feds come help out and let us know what other states are doing to implement as well.
Yeah, that's been super helpful. And so I'm glad to hear it.
And one of the little pieces that we had asked Charlie about was whether or not there were some other councils across, whether it was the region or the states that might have done some restructuring or done some new bylaws, or had challenges in recruitment for their councils and what they've done. And I think he mentioned one or two possibilities, but basically what he brought forth, at least from this council side, was that many states actually don't even have a meeting council, and that going back to that, the state of Colorado's council has been kind of a leader. He could really not point directly at another state's council in his knowledge that might be able to provide us some good input. However, I think that also goes back to Ernest, maybe that he can provide some good input, and not just himself, but may also be a better source of recommending another state's council to confer with.
Well, we've been told several times by Charlie, we're one of the best, if not the best in the country. So I'm glad we keep on hearing that we do great work. But it's always good to look at other states to see what we can strengthen. Is there anything else that people want to talk about as to moving the bylaws forward? Let me check the chat to see if we have any questions. If I'm not hearing anything else from members and state colleagues, I'm going to go ahead and move us to.
Well, Bob, can we hold up a second? So how,
sure.
What is the process going to be for updating bylaws? Are we going to wait for technical assistance that may not provide that? Because I think this is an internal document that I think it behooves the group to participate in this. And how do we actually want to go down that path of putting new words on paper, or at least reviewing the whole document? Because I think there was that discussion about, is there a bylaws committee that was going to form and work it out? Is that the route that the group wants to go? Or do it as a full group here? Or how do we actually get to a spot of beyond the, hey, the bylaws probably need a good old thorough review and cleaning, to actually having something to bring back to the council to say, hey, look at what we did, vote on it now?
Well, the agreement that was made, let's just go back to we made an agreement not to do it in subcommittee, to do it in a full commission. So I would recommend that September be the in-person meeting at a location and we'll probably be through the surge by then, and we'll just wear masks because that CDC is now changing the recommendations this week. And that the bylaws get created, but then what the bylaws, with the intent of changing and creating the bylaws, will need the professionals that specialize in equity and inclusion to review and sanitize and bring back areas for us to take a look at. So I think you have to move forward, but we need to make sure that we have that review of the professionals to make sure that we included the language and the values that we have, but may not have appropriately recorded it into a bylaw the way we want it written, as a guiding principle for moving forward. So I say do the work, but we need to make sure that when the new state representative is hired, that they're reviewed and feedback is offered back to the commission so we can update them in a more equity, inclusive, diversive way. But I think while we're doing that work, we can all be mindful of the language.
That's a really great point. I also want to invite the group to co-create a lot of this. Diversity, equity, and inclusion work really requires shared responsibility. And I mean, what I'm hearing, and perhaps this isn't correct, is that the group is seeking guidance and further support in this topic. So I'm just wondering if we may want to bring in a facilitator to build capacity of the group to have these conversations and to operate with this lens, so that, you know, everybody on this call and everybody in this group at least has a foundation in this, so that we can continue to build from that. You know, I think we're the field is moving away from having a single source EDI person who's often tokenized, and really working towards shared accountability and shared responsibility for this. And if we need to bring in some facilitators and workshops and make sure that we are covering topics related to this, let's do it. Yumiko's working on some of that work with the BHAC as well. And I think we can invite all council members to some of those workshops. And if you have specific topics that you'd like to learn more about, or build your own personal capacity, or build the capacity of the group in, we can look into some of those trainings. We can bring in some external facilitators. There's some really great experts who each have covered a very niche area of this, this very, very broad field. So I think, you know, let's be committed to working towards that. And we're very, very supportive of this. So thank you.
This has been the goal, Jamie, for this year. And Renee did have an opportunity to start some of that with us. But yes, we have asked for technical assistance. And a year ago, I said, we're going to rehang the drapes on this task force, you know, change the linen out on the drapes, the window, and have it look different. So this was the year that we were coming out of the pandemic, that we were really hoping to do a reset. And with the reset of doing the bylaws was bringing more inclusive, equity, and diversity to the group. And that was through the work, our conversation, and our recruitment. So we wanted to take a full look at this council, and from the top to bottom. So that was the reset year we were working towards this year. So yes, I can say we would welcome it, because we've talked about this for a year.
Okay, Lloyd here. I just want to emphasize our need to move forward with the bylaws, and working on those as a group, I think, is critical. There are a number of ways that we have changed how we operate, and right now, today, being on Zoom is one example that is not included in the bylaws. And there's pieces to this that really tie into membership, that how we do business and how we recruit that diversity, which is also including things that we've struggled with in the past, such as including the frontier and rural areas. So my experience as well is being on this council and being through some bylaw reviews of the past, as I'm sure Bob has had as well, is it is definitely something that in my experience works a lot better in person than trying to do this via Zoom.
All right, on our agenda, it is time to, is there any more conversation? I don't want to rush anything, but I want to be mindful of getting to everything today. Okay.
Nope. So just to reiterate, Bob, it sounds like the state has at least 2 action items here to help organize an in-person meeting for the in-depth bylaws review for September, and then also put our heads together around technical assistance, generally around bylaws, and also specifically around bringing an equity lens to all of the work of the committee could potentially look like.
Yes.
Does that sound right?
That is. That was the goal for this year, and preparing for our block grant year, as we call it, which is every other year. So we wanted to get ready for that and get through some of the work that we had to do. The only other request is we are moving to a hybrid model. So the people that wanted to attend in person, they could, but we still needed to have the ability to make sure that we had representation from mountain and frontier communities.
And also for the hybrid, recognizing that we are continuing to be in a pandemic, and we also have a few additional infectious diseases that are going around right now. Just want to make sure that folks know that if they're medically vulnerable or they have people in their lives that are medically vulnerable, that they can take advantage of that hybrid option. And if they have a known exposure to an infectious disease, we do ask that they also do the hybrid option. And we'll likely have a mask request for everybody who's coming to the in-person event.
Are you saying request or requirement? Because that's different.
I don't believe I'm allowed to require, so it will be a request.
Oh, okay.
And sorry I had to cancel this month on us all, but we had an outbreak and I had to manage it. So, all right. I'm going to close.
Are you up for hosting it for next month then? Because I know we were going to do it at your facility.
I think we need to talk about that. Today is my last meeting and my last day chairing, and I think that conversation has to happen at 11:25 as to what happens next. But I'll hold my thoughts till 11:25. But I can host, and I don't want to throw Lori Banks under the bus, but they also have great facilities that we can host in the metro area. So I'm going to put us on break, 10 minutes. So we can stop recording. Everyone come back. It is exactly 10:30. So I'll see everyone at 10:40 on the dot. Thank you so much. Wellness break. All right, welcome back, everybody. It is now 10:40. I hope you had a great wellness break. Next up on our bylaws, we have the Master of Recruitment, Lloyd Moore.
All right, good morning, everyone again. I guess the main thing I'd like to do this morning is the update on our membership drive. There's a piece of me that wants to apologize to the council. At the same time, I know I do not need to. So definitely been behind the 8 ball with lots of things health-wise in my life, shutting down the nonprofit I run, among many other things that has left me at a point where we're 2 months behind in getting a application out. At the same time, our target on that application has been shifting a little bit with what we need to include on it, or from the aspects of diversity, how do we incorporate things on the application that are important to that diversity, such as age, with the movement to exclude birth dates, et cetera, on applications. So trying to have those conversations on how we reflect that. So the thing I can say is that I'm definitely at a lull in shutting down my nonprofit. So I'll be able to get that actually out. I know I keep saying that. I'll be feeding information to the other membership committee members, as well as getting stuff to Donda so she can update the actual application for us. But as we continue to operate as a council, our challenges with our membership are continuing to grow. For those who may not be fully aware or kind of keeping count, we've had more than 8 resignations from our council this year. And, you know, that's always expected. People change jobs, their availability changes, you know, their life changes, you know, those things occur. But having a council that was toward our minimum numbers to begin with is going to be one of the other recruitment challenges, and how do we deal with that? Normally, we try to have the council rotate about 1/3 of the positions a year, being a 3-year term. That way we continue to have experience on the council and not have a mostly brand new council. So that's going to be a challenge. One of the things that we need to bring forth to this council, as well as the steering committee, is we have a number of people that are currently on a roster that we may need to look at removing for an extended period of non-attendance. They have been reached out to. So we need to address that. One of the ideas that I had also was we might want to entertain asking those people who are rotating off to extend a year in their term. We've already asked all council members through the pandemic to do that. But it may be something we want to consider again. So I'm not sure if that's a specific piece that we want to talk about and address and make a decision on today.
Open for discussion.
I'll start off, Bob, by saying we've heard about a lot of our councils having a hard time keeping membership or getting membership in because of the COVID epidemic. So I don't think we're alone in all of this. However, I do think we're going to have an uphill challenge trying to get the positions filled.
This is Margie. Lloyd, should we make a motion and then take a vote about extending people's term for a year if they're willing, or at least outline a process to determine that?
Do we know how many people are coming off today or September?
Yes, I can tell you that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people.
And is and Lloyd, are those 7 ending in September or August. What is their end date?
End date for the council positions as a whole is September 30th. And,
September 30th.
The new dates, new terms start October 1st.
Okay. Well, I'm on 2 bonus years since the pandemic, so I've re-upped twice. I'm gonna hold back and see what the rest of task force members, council members discuss today as to how to move forward and not have brain drain. So let's have a conversation on recruitment. The rule used to be we all had to bring somebody, and I brought Marcella, and I think I also brought Angie. We met at Charlie's over burgers once, and I pushed. So I think I brought 2.
For myself, between changes in term limits since I've been on council and our extension during COVID, I'm in the same place as Bob is. I've essentially had been extended twice myself. What I guess am asking council today around this specific item, then I got a couple more items, is if council believes this is a good idea, to ask people to extend that are rotating off to stay on another year, or to look at differently and automatically extend people an additional year, with the caveat that we gave last time is to give those that are rotating off the option to not extend and go ahead and rotate off council. So, but that did take a motion last time and a vote.
All right, so Lloyd, so I'm clear, are you asking for someone to put forth that motion?
Yes.
Could I have a motion?
I will put forth that motion. I'm feeling really concerned about the size of this group, and I too have brought 2 people to the group, but neither one of them are in attendance today. I think due to concerns of the momentum of this group, as well as hybrid meetings and virtual meetings, and just confusion of where we're moving. So I'm very concerned about our level of recruitment this coming year. So I'd like to put forward the motion to ask those members to consider continuing their seat 1 additional year with the option of rotating off.
Okay, so the motion being put forth is we are requesting permission for people to stay post-pandemic year, or they can respectfully term off. But we are asking to suspend that part of our bylaws in order to keep seats filled during the pandemic. So the motion needs a second.
I would second that motion.
Is there discussion with extending the
I
opportunity?
believe James did put in the chat to look at the membership list. Lloyd, would you be able to share the membership list so we can get a view of it?
Yes, it may take me a moment, as I may need to put it in a PDF format here, but that will only take a moment.
And is there any discussion we would like to have about membership, the extension, and concerns as to in-person and hybrid and attendance for this meeting? Why we get the PDF? I personally, go ahead, Lori, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I don't know it's a discussion item, but I just want to clarify that even if we vote to extend current membership for that additional year, that it doesn't hinder the process of new individuals coming on.
Correct.
Okay.
Or members choosing to leave.
And what we did the last time was that for members coming onto council is that we just did the standard 3-year term, starting with the time that they came onto council.
That's correct. And then the extension was from today forward when we voted. If people chose to stay, it was, the clock started then, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Lori, does that answer your question? Are there any other questions or discussion?
Okay, just real quick, this PDF is going to be extended out because of the number of columns that are in this. There it is. Okay. Okay, there it is.
Do we want to look at this before we make a vote?
Lloyd, I don't know that you're sharing yet.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that was with, it's going to be difficult to read because of the number of columns in this sheet. So
if the group is okay, oh, I see you put it in the chat. If the group's okay with not looking at it, we can move forward, I guess, with that.
Well, so for transparency reasons, let's get it sent out by email so we at least all have it. It's also in the chat. So Lloyd, if you can get that sent out, we all have the membership list, the dates and the term, that would be great. Okay. And then that way people are informed and we could still proceed with the vote is of extension today. All right, so if we're ready to vote, please put your hands up in the chat so the hands can be counted. The hand going up means yes, you're voting to approve allowing bylaws to be extended during the pandemic for people to have an extra year term if they want to serve. So that's why you're raising your hand. If you're not raising your hand, you're just abstaining and just kind of staying out of the conversation, I guess. Those that feel strongly, we would love to hear from you. Is there anyone in objection that wants to have more of a conversation about this? Well, the motion passes.
All right.
So everyone can lower their hands. What was your next item, Lloyd?
Fantastic. Thank you, everybody, for helping us move forward with membership. One of the pieces that we got from Charlie Smith, which I thought was an excellent idea that we hadn't thought of, was to see if we can leverage the applications that were made to BHAC of individuals who were not accepted to that council.
That is a state question.
I don't have an answer, Ryan. Do you? We can certainly look into it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be our response. We'll look into it and see what that looks like.
Years and years and years ago, I can offer some history when we were lean on some applications and they were starting the meth task force, and so many people wanted to be involved with the state meth task force. The previous liaison to this commission did give us those after they called them and asked if they could share the resume application. We did get them once they were notified that they were going to be shared with BPAC. So there is some precedent that we've done this before. And we got the applications from the state meth task force when they created that years ago.
I know Renee had reached out to a few people that wanted to be on BHAC that did not, BHAAC, that did not make it, to see if they were interested in this, and reached out to Lloyd and I included, I think Annette was one of those, correct, Annette? So we've been trying to invite them. Renee had talked to them to see if they were interested at all. So it's probably something we can look into.
Yeah, it's happened before.
And I do have a number of emails from Renee and a couple from others of people they know that are interested in joining us. So I will be responding to those emails and sending out the application to those individuals specifically, besides our normal distribution process once we have our application finalized. And I had one more item that just went out of my head. If I think about it, I'll throw it into chat.
Why don't we keep recruitment open right now on the agenda for Lloyd? And why don't we blend recruitment now into the co-chair conversation? So let's blend recruitment and leadership together. So let's open that up.
Marcella had a question.
Marcella?
Thank you. I do. I'm on my extension now. I should be coming up for the term of my membership. I don't know if Bob's taking me with him this time. I'd be happy to go, but I don't know if I get another extension. This would be my second. I'm always glad to serve. I really enjoy working with this group of people. I always look forward to Ryan's information every month, all of you sharing. And so I wouldn't mind another extension, but if it can't be done, then that's okay. So I just need to know.
So in clarifying, we are going into a third extension right now based on the pandemic and recruitment. So yes, you can serve if you choose, Marcella. That was our vote.
And membership will be reaching out specifically to each member who was due to rotate off to find out if they're okay in extending their term or if they are going to bow out gracefully. So it came to mind, the other thing, because I did receive an email on it concerning one of the state agency positions. For state agencies, it is up to each agency that to appoint their individual to this council. But that is probably an item that membership can reach out to our state people that are here today as the agencies that are supposed to be on council, as well as those that were recommended.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
getting there.
And then,
Lloyd, may I ask a recruitment question? So I'm a member of the Parents of Children with SMI group that meets every Wednesday at noon, and it's parents from all over the state who come together. And there was quite a few of those members who actually applied to join the BHAC, and none of them were accepted as BHAC members, and they didn't really know about the existence of this committee. And so I was wondering if ever in retention efforts, as you build out as you finalize the application, can you join us for a short while to sort of talk about this committee and talk about the work that's being done here? Because this is exactly the kind of work that they want, that they want to have representation on at this table. And I just think it's a really great group of people, and it's usually between 10 and 30 members who join for that hour.
There is a new acronym that you're using to this group that I would like you to explain, since I am a parent as well to the, I'm not on your group, but I am a parent. SMI, would you mind explaining SMI to us?
So severe mental illness, it's something that we are hearing more and more from our psychiatrists and the medical system. They are deeming some of the parents who are in this group, they have adult children, young adult children who are deemed gravely mentally ill. And so we're really, and that's really why I joined on, is because I work in the housing world, but I also am a parent of two. And so just the, facing all the difficulties that we have with accessing services, but then also accessing housing and accessing, life for our young adults as they go forth. And there is some, I'm thrilled to hear all the work that you guys have been doing for years, because I think, oh my gosh, finally, I'm thrilled to hear that, the combination of substance use with mental health, and is so critical, and prevention in my world, in my personal world, and in the world that I work in every day as running a family homeless shelter. 40% of my people that I work with, the families are impacted by mental health or substance use. And so this is just, so when I was invited and I was actually invited to join the Parents with SMI from a NAMI meeting that I have been part of for over 3.5 years. It just really resonated with me and sent everything home. And I thought, and then I started hearing from the parent group that we really want to have a bigger voice. People really need to hear from us. We are actively working within the system all over the Front Range pretty much. And so when they didn't get accepted to the ad hoc committee, or the AHAC committee, they were like, well, why don't they want us? And I was like, well, I think there's other places for us to have a voice. And so that's really how I got connected with you all. And that's why I'm like, okay, there's a formal application. I'm thrilled to fill out a formal application for this.
Well, welcome, and we're glad to have you.
Thank you. And I think there's others who are similar to me. We have professional worlds that collide with our personal worlds, and we're passionate about all of this. And so you guys keep up the great work, and hope to join you.
Okay. And yes, one of us can come speak with the group, but let's not set a date and time at this point, as would like to have our application finalized, as well as our information packet that accompanies that, so that we're able to provide that to that group immediately for those that are interested. And one of the things that you heard Bob mention earlier is each person in the past has been asked to bring a person or two to council. Myself, I think I've brought 3 or 4 at least over the years. But that's a piece of our recruitment process, is to send out the application information packet to those within what I'll call their networks, other entities, committees, organizations that they are associated with, to help with our recruitment. And Margie's been a huge family component of this council, and has continued over the years to emphasize that we need more family members present.
So we're blending both of these conversations right now because they basically go together. Let's have the co-chair and chair conversation. Was there something you wanted to specifically talk about that, Ryan?
Yeah, with Jacob going, right? We need another co-chair.
And today's my last day.
I think next month is your last, right? Because it ends in September. October is the next round.
Technically, yes.
So Bob, you're going to be out next month? Is that what I'm hearing? So I think we talked briefly about it in June, because that's when Jacob said he was going to resign. But I think this is also an opportunity for, the continued legacy within Bhpac years to, maybe this is the opportunity to think about it, folks, and then we have the vote, or, if there's questions that members have.
I'm not in town on the 1st. is the problem. Labor Day.
Well, dang, we're scheduled on Labor Day.
Right. So that's big music weekend for those of us that go see music in the mountains.
This is Margie. It also seems like for people that are, since we're not sure on the people that are going to be extending for that year, that will make a difference whether people volunteer to. So maybe that step needs to be done first, and then the next step would be to it so that we know who would be included in the group that can volunteer to take on the role.
I think that's an excellent suggestion that we might want to table this until September, when we know what our current council will look like. So we know those individuals will be continuing. If I remember correctly, that there's times in the past when it's been a holiday weekend that we have moved the council forward a week on the schedule. So to September, so that would be to September 8th.
I would be absolutely supportive of moving it, but it's up to the rest of council members to make a vote on it, unless someone wants to make a motion and we vote.
I will make a motion to move our council meeting in September to September 8th. It's
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? Hearing no discussion, show of hands in the chat box. Lots of hands. Okay. This would definitely pass with the amount of hands. All right. So I'll be chairing one more one more meeting for everybody. So then are we is it that, Ryan, that we are getting ready to vote for executive committee then in September? Is that what we're going to be adding to the agenda for September? Is that the discussion we are looking to have?
So specifically the co-chair discussion, or?
Well, I mean, the executive committee is somewhat up, so we would need to take a vote since both chairs are up. I mean, I'm happy to stay to help forward. I'm happy to stay and help if that's what task force members want in the interim. So I just want to make sure that's clear. I'm not like ripping and running. You know, I'm also happy to extend my third year if people feel it's necessary. I mean, I love this group as well, and I'm happy to stay and help around if it's beneficial. If not, I can move on up to Bhpac and continue to partner with this group. So
Yeah, and I think that's just so appreciate the moving it from September 1st to September 8th, since I didn't catch it until right now that we were on for Labor Day. But yeah, I think that the leadership of Bhpac, so that the two co-chairs, is we absolutely have to have that discussion and formal vote during the September meeting. So I think right now the ask is, if you're even on the fence, like, think about it over this next couple weeks here, and yeah, feel free to reach out and we can have that conversation if you want to talk offline as well about what that means and what the support looks like from both the executive committee that Bob is talking about, where we we meet monthly to agenda set and all that stuff, as well as the support that the BHA can provide offline as well, in supporting members moving up to those leadership roles.
This is Margie. It seems like we also need to have a conversation about, I know we talk about our committees, but we really haven't had a committee structure for 2 years. And and that impacts what we put in the bylaws. It impacts, what we asked of people as a member, because I think our requirement was that you become, if you're a member, you also serve on a committee. But I think that structure or restructuring that piece also needs to be on somewhere in the conversation.
So Margie, that raises a really good point. If we also need to talk about if we're going in September hybrid and have a meeting location. And if we do vote to go hybrid, we need the technology for people to be able to Zoom into the meeting as well as subcommittees. One of the recommendations that we can talk about today is if we stay Zoom, that this 4-hour agenda probably needs to stay 2 hours in the morning, and then we need Zoom links for 2 hours after the morning meeting so we can attend our committee meetings. And we'll need to set up those Zoom links. So during this time, we also are doing our committee work and people can break out. So we might need to get more sophisticated as the pandemic and other public health issues are coming, and we do have some vulnerable people, how we can start our committee process if we stay remote, which can happen. And I'm doing it on other commissions. As we do our commission meeting, we cut it short and then we go into committees through other Zoom links. That same model is working elsewhere. It's probably time to make that decision in September to restart those subcommittees by either hybrid or in person. So I'm with you, Margie. It's time to start those back as well.
Well, and I was thinking too, that, I say membership, we meet at a totally different day and time. And if that is possibly an option for some people, I know would want to be on more than one committee. That also needs to be put on the plate. I mean, so say, for example, I know Lloyd, you're on a committee, recovery or whichever, and then membership. So if that's something to at least put on the table.
We've typically tried to keep committees within the 4-hour block to keep attendance up, since people block it off. And we've tried not to require people to attend more than one meeting. But like you said, we can put everything on the table. Times are changing, but that's the historical, is why we try to keep everything to the 4-hour block, because it was a way to keep attendance up and to keep the flow going. So we had the information in the morning, and then we went right into committee and did the work, is why committees came after our morning session. It just hasn't happened for 2 years. Any other discussion? All right. We're going to move to what's going on in our community, where we get updates, information sharing, new evidence-based practices, new changes within programs. So this is the opportunity we get to hear from everybody as to exciting things going on. So for our prevention community and anyone involved with prevention, could you please provide us updates at this time?
This is Bonnie Holiday, and so I think a big update is we transition to the prevention services department at CDPHE. The transition is going well, and we are already noticing that we are, just exposed to a lot more prevention messaging, including some opportunities. If folks are interested, we did see TGYS, so that's the Tony Gramsci's Youth Services Program. They're offering grant writing webinars and trainings for community-based organizations and nonprofits. So I can send that opportunity along to Donda to send out with the minutes if that works for folks.
Yeah, that's an interesting funding category we can talk about and learn about. Yeah, so I'm not sure everyone knows that funding category or the name. So
I can expand if folks want.
Yeah, please.
Sure. So the Tony Gramsci's Youth Services program is actually housed under CDHS, and they fund a lot of upstream prevention work, a lot of focus on equity, diversity, and inclusion. The grants tend to be a little bit smaller than what we fund through the block grant, but we have a lot of shared grantees. And I do have to say their staff is absolutely wonderful. And so I'm probably going to be sitting in on some of those sessions as well.
And it funds many of our mentor programs.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, Tony Gramsci, not mine, I meant throughout the state. So Tony Gramsci is very helpful for those mentoring organizations to stay alive. Any other prevention updates from the community? I'm going to move us to the treatment community. Anything going on exciting or interesting in the treatment community? It is Overdose Awareness Month, so I hope to hear from our recovery and treatment community what we're doing with those many awards many of us received from the state for overdose awareness.
Well, my announcement is not overdose awareness, but I wanted to share some exciting news that Aurora Mental Health Center is doing. We've established a client and family council. It's the first time that that's happened at Aurora Mental Health Center. We've met 7 times now, and so we've gone through kind of our process of storming and norming a bit, but they have been very active. And yes, I did provide them the application for this committee as well to look at, but it's exciting to have our organization moving that way. They've not, again, had this council before, and it's a wide variety of representation. Right now we have 10 members. The goal is to get to 12. And so it's a good group.
Congratulations. Do they also talk about equity and is it your equity council or is it more of a consumer council?
It's a consumer and family council, very specifically. So our goal is to ultimately give feedback from community perspective in terms of how services are being provided. We've also done some innovation work with the group already, and we do have presentations from across our organization of services that are being provided, which includes DE&I efforts.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Any other updates?
I just put into the chat, I'm sure other folks are having this as well. We're still really encountering a lot of difficulty in hiring behavioral health positions. Very, very difficult to keep jobs filled.
Yeah.
Everybody's feeling it. I can see all the heads nodding, and it is it's the problem for the state and for clients and people who need services that we cannot keep jobs filled. It's unfortunate.
And they get the opportunity to jump jobs when you finally hire someone, train them within 90 days, they get a better offer somewhere else, and then they get a better offer somewhere else. And
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, Brian, is not to pick on you, but I know that that's part of the BHA kind of issue, right? Is to try to improve the behavioral health workforce. Is there anything specifically happening right now related to that?
Yeah, so with Senate Bill 22-181, by September 1st, we have to create and send out our workforce strategic plan. So with that, there is sessions on August 10th and August 11th, I can send the newsletter link about public meetings related to what that plan looks like and what the goals from 181 or Senate Bill 181 are. It also expands on information or expands on programming from Senate Bill 21-137 from the year previously, and the workforce funding from that. So if you're interested in those, like I said, Wednesday, August 10th and Thursday, August 11th, there's some meetings that you can register, which I'll send out that information as well. Because yeah, I mean, Laura, you're right on, is that I think that's exactly what that bill was trying to establish, is what are some resources that the state can really get behind and fund to get people into the workforce, maintained in the workforce, and also create additional pathways. There's been a lot of talk about like the Alaska behavioral health aid model and getting people into agencies through a different pathway that kind of supports behavioral health.
Ryan, one of the areas real quick, and I don't want to get us off topic, but I think the rest of my colleagues may agree with this. The other problem that we have is we need to have licensed professionals. So it's not just bodies. They have to come with licensing, and we are so short on licensed professionals, which means that you bill through licensed professionals. And we've not talked with Dora about maybe easing their regs because of the pandemic and getting people through the licensing requirements. I've looked for that type of communication. So that could be something that comes out of Bhpac, is that we've got to take a look at what Dora is doing with their lengthy requirements right now, when we have a significant workforce shortage. And then the cost to get licensed for people, and then they choose not to right now. So I do think that's a conversation as well. I don't know if the mental health centers would agree with me or not, but it's
Yes.
I find that to be a significant issue.
I think the other issue too, and again, I don't mean to get off on a tangent either, but is the reciprocity that exists between states. And the fact that that's non-existent makes it very difficult to move people into the state of Colorado and get them working for, right away.
They can come, but their license doesn't come.
Correct.
Which doesn't help us other than get us a body and a chair. So I think that's part of the significant issue that we're having. And I haven't found where that's being discussed anywhere, Ryan. And I've been trying to pick up on the notes throughout of all the commissions and stuff. It seems like Dora isn't connected to some of our labor shortage conversations. So that would be a concern of mine that I certainly will bring up at BHAC, that Dora needs to be at the table with all of the licensing, all of the requirements, and something's got to give so we can get these students prepared to get into the field. So that's the treatment world part. The other part that I wanted to bring up is that it is Opioid Awareness Month. So please take a look at, many of the organizations have received these mini grants to do different kind of advertising and community events. Mile High, the agency I serve, was a recipient. So we're having a lot of education family nights for the community and for our patients. So take a look at what's going to be announced and all the information that's coming around. And if you're interested, we can certainly get that information to your organizations as well, so we can continue to educate about opioid addiction and the issues that face Colorado when it comes to opioids. Is there anything else from the treatment community? I'm going to close this portion and go to our friends in recovery community. What's going on?
I'll just start real quick. I mentioned, I think last month as well, closing my nonprofit. It's commonly known as Last House in the Block. It is a meeting clubhouse. We're 12-step centric, but have not been 12-step exclusive. Our closing is affecting 21 groups and committees that have standing meetings with us for many years, but all those have or are in the process of finding new homes and have many options and are going to be able to continue on their scheduled dates and times. So if you hear anything out in the community that those meetings are closed, it's not the meetings are closed, it's just our clubhouse is closed.
Thank you, Lloyd. Other announcements from the recovery community?
Yeah, I have a couple of announcements. Just want to remind everybody, and if you didn't know, next week is the second annual Rural Peer Recovery Conference up in Glenwood. We have about 100 peers that have already signed up for attendance. There still is hotel availability up there. It's going to be Thursday and Friday. We have some amazing guest speakers and some breakout rooms. I'll put that Eventbrite with all the people that are on it and are going to be there in the chat. And also the Mobilized Recovery Tour Bus is coming to Denver on September 9th. They're doing stops at 5280 High School. And then their second stop is going to be at the AFR Colorado or Denver Metro office. And our stop is really around a remembrance and a panel discussion. I'll put that link also in the chat box. We're really looking for the community, stakeholders, treatment, anybody that wants to be a part of that discussion and be a part of that is welcome at both of those events. And just another reminder that Recovery Month is right around the corner. September 17th is a Saturday, and that's when we're doing our 21st annual Rally for Recovery in Civic Center Park, as long as they don't close it a couple of days beforehand like they did last year. And we're doing things differently this year, meaning anybody and everybody is welcome to come there with a free table. We're not doing sponsorships and stuff like that to really bring the community out in full force, from people that provide services to recovery community organizations to community support meetings, groups. You know, all people are welcome. So I'll definitely make sure that I put my email in there if anybody's interested in coming and having their own booth to provide their services and what they do for the recovery community in general. Please feel free.
Is the march coming back? Did you guys bring the march back?
Yeah, we're going to do the Walk for Recovery. Like every year, it starts with a Walk for Recovery from Union Station up 16th Street Mall into Civic Center Park.
Great.
And that will be happening as well. Timelines we're roughly going to be starting at 11. We're finalizing all that to get that information out as well. But yeah, the walk will be back. We have a couple of music artists, food, all that kind of stuff. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there, and I will keep you guys informed. But I implore anybody that's out there providing services, whether it's treatment or recovery support services, to come be a part of this year's rally.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Any other announcements from our recovery community? Thanks, James. The conference, I'm sending a bunch of staff in Glenwood. They're so excited to get back to normal conferences and going to see people and going places. So it's nice that we're moving forward and figuring out how to live with this pandemic. So my staff are thrilled. We're sending 3, and we're very excited for AFR's recovery rally. It's always a lot of fun. So I highly encourage everybody and Bhpac to attend the rally at the Capitol. Any other announcements? Okay, Ryan, this is usually where you get your piece.
Yep, so usually with the BHA updates, we start with the board's, council's, task force updates. I don't see Ty on here, who was the Bhpac representation on the mental health disorders in the criminal and juvenile justice system task force. I can provide a little bit of update on that. So Senate Bill 22021 made some changes to that task, or to that legislative oversight committee that has that corresponding task force that Ty represented Bhpac specifically on. So legislative oversight committee, that's legislators make up an interim committee that essentially functions year round, and they have the ability to support and drive legislation that doesn't count as their individual bill numbers. So with that, there's that corresponding task force that does a lot of behind the scenes work to get to a spot where that legislative group can submit bills. So the membership looks a little different when they re-upped the Legislative Oversight Committee because it was set to repeal. So Senate Bill 21 re-upped that, as well as re-upped the task force, changed the name from the mental health disorders to the behavioral health disorders in the criminal and juvenile justice system, to expand it more to include, or to expand it to include substance use disorders as well as mental health disorders. So with that, the Bhpac seat was taken off but yeah, to try to create a smaller task force because it was growing and growing and growing. The piece with that is that the Behavioral Health Administration also has a seat representation on that. I'm actually going to be serving as the BHA's representation on the task force. So I'll be providing updates to this group related to what's going on in the task force. I've yet to be involved. I know they met a couple weeks ago as the Legislative Oversight Committee, but yeah, there's a bunch of different subcommittees with that, and I can inform the group about subcommittee representation, as well as when the task force meets, as well as the Oversight Committee, to make sure that anyone interested in that group is able to attend if they would like. Additionally, any questions about that task force and the corresponding Legislative Oversight Committee? Also, this is the time to talk about the State Rehabilitation Council, where Lorraine was our representation on that. I don't know if Lorraine's still on here. She needs to turn off, to resign from that group. So we'll need another Bhpac representation or member on that group. So that's one that we can have that discussion next month as well. That is the group that oversees essentially the state rehabilitation part. Who did we have join? She must have jumped off. Darby. I wonder if Darby has some additional information on that. But we'll have to have the Bhpac representation added to there as well. But this is also the time that I wanted to make sure that that Bhpac is also involved with or collaborating with our other boards that the Behavioral Health Administration administers, like the Mental Health Advisory Board for Service Standards and Regulations. That's that 2765 board, 2765 being the care and treatment of persons with mental health disorders in Colorado. That involuntary is often kind of what it gets referred to. So with House Bill 1256 being passed, it revamped a lot of what the patient rights look like, what the procedures for involuntary mental health care look like. So that Mental Health Advisory Board is advising the Behavioral Health Administration on how to implement those new provisions of involuntary mental health care in Colorado. With 1256, it also ramps up the Behavioral Health Administration's staff involved directly with implementing the provisions of Title 27, Article 65, all the way up to, in essentially 2 years from now, 10.1 staff specifically assigned to manage the oversight of what involuntary mental health care looks like, which is a big increase for us because currently we have one specific staff assigned to involuntary mental health care, which includes the designation of facilities to provide that care to individuals. So that whole regulatory process. So with that, I'll also keep this board informed, or this council informed, about those board actions and what that looks like as we implement the new provisions of involuntary mental health care. Questions about that one?
Ryan, this is Margie. I just wondered, does that, and I'm sorry if I'm really stupid about this, but does that connect with the 988 and the crisis services and that piece? And how do those intertwine, or do they not at all?
Well, they intertwine as in access to someone to talk to and get into the system. This is the part where it's what do facilities actually do and how do they meet the provisions of the law when someone needs the involuntary mental health side of treatment and care. So I think that's where the piece is, and that's what we're going to be updating through our regulatory structure, as well as what does it look like to have state government oversight of facilities that provide that involuntary care. So it's not the direct line between 988 and the crisis system, but crisis system facilities are designated facilities, at least walk-in centers and crisis stabilization units. So that's the piece with, it's more talking about that specific government oversight of those types of facilities.
Does that also include residential or host home or foster home settings, or is that a totally different regulation piece?
A little bit different because there's a specific facility definition in state law related to who can be a designated facility to provide the involuntary care. Right now, it's broken down to community mental health centers, community mental health clinics, hospitals. RCCFs is still the language in there. So with Family First, what does that look like with the expanded kids residential facility types? So that's also an opportunity for the BHA and the state as a whole to come up with how do we best serve people, and especially the highest need individuals that are involved in a court process to receive or to mandate involuntary mental health care. And also I see the peers there as well as what does peer involvement look like through this process as well, and incorporating peer and recovery into this whole process of what involuntary care looks like to ensure that people have the services they need in facilities to make sure that they transition into a community-based setting and ultimately back in the community where they don't need involuntary mental health care.
One of the things, Ryan, that I think is exciting, that maybe you can expand on a little bit, that would be a great update, is the state put out RFPs to expand the crisis services network, which we've never had an RFP go out before from the BHA. And those awards were just made, and they were made to a lot of organizations that are not a part of the safety network and are now in expanding it. So I think that's a tremendous piece of progress for Colorado, seeing how many entities are now building capacity to expand Colorado Crisis Services.
Yep, and this is my monthly plug for the newsletter. That's where there's a lot of opportunities to identify what funding pieces are coming and available, and be on the lookout, because we have, which we've talked previously about, all of the ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan Act funding, where the Behavioral Health Administration received roughly $122 million worth of funding, and that we'll need to roll those out in a couple different grant programs. So be on the lookout there. That will be included in the monthly newsletter about opportunities. But Bob, you're exactly right. I mean, I think this is an exciting time across the continuum where there is additional funding flowing into behavioral health. So absolutely send that out, look at what the requirements are. A lot of those requirements, or at least some of the big grants, have like the community investment grant from 1281 is one of those grants that come with you have to do a community assessment on what the need is and include that in the application. That application process or application needs to be online by the end of this calendar year. So be on the lookout for these next couple of months. We have more and more information, as well as criminal justice grants from Senate Bill 196. Those are also, the application needs to be out the door and available by the end of the calendar year. So a lot of money opportunities for a bunch of different organizations. We tried to leave it as broad as possible for who's eligible for these grant programs to make it completely encompassing of lots of types of service delivery systems. So be on the lookout for those. Also, while the Children and Youth Mental Health Service Standards Advisory Board. This is that CYMHTA board that meets monthly specific to the Children and Youth Mental Health Treatment Act. They submitted recommendations for updating the CYMHTA rules based on what assessments look like, who can do assessments, getting exactly at what we just talked about related to who can do assessments and expanding the mental health professional to include the candidates. That was passed, I think, 1 or 2 years ago because they included a candidate status within LPCs and licensed social workers and licensed marriage and family therapists to include them as long as they're receiving supervision. So trying to expand and help providers out through the CYMHTA process and what those assessments are and who needs to complete those. So this is also one of those opportunities within the BHA to really look at what are regulatory requirements and what sort of things lead to or potentially lead to some of that burden with what does workforce look like in facilities that we regulate, and is some of that based solely on our regulatory requirements that could get updated to support providers as well as the individuals seeking and in need of services receiving access. So those are just some other boards, councils that are doing things within this realm, which also provides that opportunity for this Bhpac group to come up with here's what we're doing here. And we can get the folks. I still administer the Mental Health Advisory Board. So if there's pieces coming out of here about, hey, Mental Health Advisory Board, look at these things, I can definitely take that to that monthly meeting as well. It's also, if you're interested in attending those meetings, if you're interested in voluntary mental health care or CYMHTA, those are open boards. So you can participate directly in those. We can get the board calendar in people's hands as well. So with that, talked briefly about some of the bills that we're going through that implementation process now. Some behind the scenes, I get a lot of questions about when is the money going to get released? There are specific timelines in the bills. One of the pieces with the federal funding that received, we have to get approval from the Office of State Planning and Budget in order for the money to get released. What we do not want to do is inaccurately spend the money based on not meeting federal requirements of these dollars. So we have to go through that process with the governor's office to get our spending plans released, even though there is legislation that essentially dictates how we spend the money. We have to get that next level of approval before we can actually have the money in-house, which then ultimately we can release it out to providers through grant programs and funding opportunities. So that is part of the delay. Just want to be completely transparent in that process. That's state government at its finest. There are these steps, especially when federal money is the funding stream there. So definitely, here's my plug again for the newsletter, because that's where it's the best opportunity to see those pieces. All right, so I'll put our bill dossier that is still accurate and being updated consistently when things change, right? Session's over, so things don't change now, but once in a while there's new fiscal notes that come online. But ultimately, here's that we've talked about with all of those behavioral health bills during the 2022 session. For your records, if you're interested in looking through all of those things that happened. And I'll leave it at that. Any questions? Or any BHA staff that want to, here's another opportunity for us to kick off any of the great things we're doing.
Get your plugs in.
Ultimately, I'm excited to have this group up and running again. So enough of this summer recess stuff. Let's get some work done.
That means you have to stick with us for a while now, Ryan.
That's the plan. So
yeah, no baseball clubs coming to the United States. We need to keep. I'm going to give Renee crap when we see him. So anybody, any last announcements before we adjourn until the change of date, which was sent to everyone's email box to accept the Outlook invite for September 8th, which we voted on. If there isn't any other announcements, I wish everyone a very safe and happy end of summer and Labor Day. And get out, enjoy, and take care of yourselves. Bye, everyone.